Good afternoon everybody and welcome to our sunset safari from Juma. Woohoo, we're back online. So our internet struggles have all been sorted by the looks of things, except now we have a few internet problems in Kenya, so it's just going to be me this afternoon. And for those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Tristan. On camera today I have got Sebastian, and so it is live, it is interactive, which means hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or on the YouTube chat if you want to get hold of us. Now, like I said just now, unfortunately the Mara seems to have caught what Juma caught yesterday, and their internet has gone down today, so I'm going to be all on my own this afternoon, which means that we'll need all of you to be as interactive as possible. So send through lots of things, or if you have any ideas for what you want to do this afternoon, any games or any little things that we should try and accomplish, let's do it on hashtag Safari Live or YouTube chat. Right, now I was looking at a spider web because, well, we were just having a little joke around, but it is a beautiful example of a community nest spider. We have not seen too many of them lately, and this one is really right out in the open, and it's a large web that has been built on this particular tree. You can see it's big and dense and thick and packed full of leaves, and this is very typical of these spiders. They are small, tiny, minute individuals, and so that means that they come together in this big grouping so as they can subdue prey, with each one with a little bit of venom, that they can subdue everything and then pull it into that clump of sort of material. Now the reason the material is there, because they're so small, it would be easy for them to be picked off, so they're actually hiding inside there, and they're able to then drag their food in there and feed without having to worry about birds picking them off from the edges or any other spiders or predatory insects finding them. So it's a very clever system that they've got, and strength in numbers, as is a lot of the animals out here, is how they go about things. And soon we're going to see a lot of new ones being built as the summer months come, so these guys will be building again, and we'll start to find more and more nests all over the place. But a nice thing to see. Unfortunately, it's very difficult to actually see the spiders themselves. I one day want to try and see if I can find a small one and take it to the microscope in the tent. Might be a good project for our summer months when we've got a bit of rain, and see if we can find those spiders on the microscope and show you what they look like and how small they really are, because it's not something we get to see every day. What you can also see there is that the bush willow is slowly but surely starting to produce buds, so they're going to start flowering soon with this warm weather that we've got. It's about 33 degrees centigrade or 92 degrees Fahrenheit today, so it is very hot, and this warm weather is starting to get all the trees going, so we're starting to see budding happening on a lot of the trees as we forge towards summer from spring. And then we'll start to see the leaves once the first rain comes. I reckon we're in for rain fairly soon. It's gotten a bit overcast today, so it was blisteringly hot during the middle of the day, but as it's kind of the afternoon's wearing on, so this thin layer of cloud is coming through, and I believe tomorrow is going to be excessively hot, and then on Friday it's actually going to go right down to about 23 degrees. Now that normally means that a cold front is going to arrive, and maybe a bit of rain as well. So Paula, you're wondering what species of spider builds that nest. As I was saying, it's called a community nest spider. So basically the reason it's called a community nest spider is, as I was saying earlier, is that they all come together. So there'll be thousands of spiders inside that web. So if you had somebody that was completely petrified of spiders, that is not a web that you would want to throw on their bed, because I think they would have a heart attack with the amount of spiders that would come out of there. And as I was saying, it's because they're so small and little that they don't have enough venom to overpower prey items, and so what they have to do is they have to stay together so that each one can inject a little bit of venom, and that will eventually then kill that prey item, and they can then feed off it. So it's a very clever system to have, and a wonderful way of overcoming size. We see it a lot with other animals out here, so you'll see, and the Mara is a prime example of this. The wildebeest in mass migration is how they almost counteract the lions and all the other things, is because they're in such big numbers that there's a lot of eyes, a lot of ears, a lot of noses, that one can detect animals, but two, it lessens the likelihood of them being the individual that's hunted. If it was just one wildebeest roaming around the Mara plains, I can guarantee that that wildebeest would not last very long at all, but because there's thousands and thousands, there's always going to be some that are going to escape and get away from hungry lions and various other predators that roam the plains of East Africa, and the same down here in South Africa. There's impalas that group together in numbers, and then on the opposite spectrum, in the mammal predators, if you think of lions, coalitions of cheetah, they come together again. Same reason, is that more numbers, easier it is sometimes to be able to overpower larger food items and get the food that you want to. So it's a very clever system to have. But I'm not sure what's actually been happening on Juma the last 2 days. I haven't heard too much of what's been going on. So hopefully we'll have a good afternoon and have some sort of semblance of good updates when the rest of the guys get mobile. Everybody's still at the lodges. They tend to be getting out a little bit later now because it's still quite warm, so they're starting to head out more around 4 o'clock. Now, Paula, you saying hyena den please this afternoon? I think we will definitely head to the hyena den, but I think it's going to be a bit hot now for there, so I would imagine that the little ones are probably seeking shelter in the shade, and which would be inside the mound. Also, the mound is going to be a lot cooler, and the reason why is because it's got very thick walls, and so the temperature inside those mounds generally is very constant. It's not going to fluctuate, and it's not going to get too hot or cold like it does on the surface. So you find the little ones spend a lot of time in there, and I think around sunset, hopefully, they should start coming out. So we will definitely head there a little bit later. What we're going to try to do now is try and head towards some of the water holes, see if there's any elephants that are drinking. Also, I just want to just check around and see what's been happening. Hopefully the Angama pride has come back. I believe one of the females is sporting a rather nasty injury on her hip, and so it would be nice to catch up with them. The reason why I've stopped though is that there was some dwarf mongoose that ran across the road. Unfortunately, it seems as though the last one went over. I was generally with them is if you actually stop and you wait a little bit, some of them will start creeping out onto the road. They're quite curious animals, and they like to see what's going on. So I thought that there might be one or two that might come out, but it seems as though the last one ran across and no more are following, which is a bit of a shame. So we'll have to just carry on trying to look for them. They're going to be very active at the moment because it's so warm. You find the best time to actually find dwarf mongoose is normally early in the morning. So first thing in the morning when it's still cold, then they come out onto the termite mounds and they'll sit and they'll kind of absorb some sun and try and warm themselves up from the cooler night, and then from there they're quite active. So now it's all about foraging and looking for food and trying to find something to eat. And they're going to be very happy because now that it's becoming hotter, so insects and snakes are going to be a lot more active, and therefore the mongoose is going to find food a lot easier than what it has over the last few months. Although they are very proficient at digging, so they do dig out varying insects and various other things as they go. So, Mrs. Zero, you reckon we should play the alphabet game? Right. So for those of you who don't know what the alphabet game is it's a game that Taylor and I played one day a while ago, and it was basically to find something that is relating to nature and wildlife and what we do every day in terms of game drive that starts with each letter of the alphabet. So for example, let's say A would be a antelope, or B would be a bird or something like that. We tried to make it a little bit more specific and not so generic, because otherwise it would be a lot easier, and it was actually quite a challenge. It was something that was quite difficult to do, so we can do that. I think let's keep that in the bank for later. If we're struggling with any content and we're battling to find anything, we certainly will play the alphabet game. But let's see if we can't find some sort of animals to speak about first. If we're finding it's a little on the quiet side, then we'll go to the alphabet game for sure, because it is very good in terms of it kind of opens up everything. You tend to look at everything as a whole. You don't get sort of sucked into just animals, and you look at plants and soils and all kinds of things. So we will get into it, I think, a little bit later. Seb, you keen for the alphabet game?
Yeah, sure.
You were with me last time, weren't you?
Yeah.
Yes, Seb and I were together and we won. Yeah. Exactly. We were hedged as going to lose because we joined the game quite late, and then we won. We caught up very quickly. We got a bit stuck at the back end of the alphabet because we started from Z, so we were starting from the back side of the alphabet and working our way forwards, and we got stuck around Q's and those areas, and it took us a while to kind of catch up. Although I believe if Taylor was on drive, she would be protesting profusely because she reckons that we were cheating because we were talking about all kinds of other things, and so we were using horns. And what was the other one that I used that she was not so happy about? Oh, Yuri's house. Which I suppose was a bit cheeky and not very natural, but at the time, you know, you've got to do these things to try and win, and so we used it and we did what we had to. So maybe we should try redo it and not use Yuri's house, although J is a really tough one. It's not an easy one out here at all. Animals that occur in the Sabi sands in Kruger. So only animals, you reckon?
And birds.
And birds, yeah, because otherwise we're in trouble. And plants.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose that's what we did.
We can't say dam or...
Okay, we can't say dam, we can't do generic things. Okay, so we're doing it. Seb, are we going to start this game? Alright, let's do it. You've got to think now as to what we're going to do. Let's start. So we're going to start with A. Now A is quite an easy one because there's lots of different A's that we can use. So let's try and think of a nice one to start with A. In fact, there's lots of them around at the moment. We can find red bush willows, which are pretty much all the trees that I'm driving past. Most of these trees here are red bush willows, which scientific name is apiculatum. So we can use that to start off our alphabet. So all of these trees that you're seeing along here, most of these are bush willows. And actually, funny enough, talking about bush willows, is that they are one of the denser species of wood that we get out here. So here in South Africa, we have very dense woods. Some of them are so dense that they sink in water, and these bush willows are one of them. So they're all part of the Combretum family. So you'll have Combretum imberba, which is our leadwood, which is the third densest that we get here in the Sabi sands. And then after that is the red bush willow, and then the top densest wood is the zebra wood, which is actually a lot of it right here next to me. So there's lots of zebra wood on my right hand side. So this plant here with these lovely big spines, there is some of them as well. So they are a horrible tree for being able to off-road. They do some damage, so we've got to be a bit careful of those. And this is a section where they love to grow along Triple M, between Triple M and this new road. Lots of zebra wood in this area, but we'll get back to them a little bit later, because we'll save those for when we need them a little bit later. Right, so A is done. Now B. What am I going to do for B? Maybe a balanites will be nice. So Ali says, my Ali says that why did Ali not come into mind to start A off? Well, Ali, quite simply because you are not anywhere where I can point a camera at you right now. So the point of the game is that you have to be able to show it on camera. So unfortunately that's why. Otherwise I would have, but that means that I also now I'm on the couch apparently, which is just fine, I suppose. You've got to get on the couch every now and then, although it is quite warm these days, so the couch is not going to be that comfortable, particularly the couch at Inga's, because it's one of those, what would you call it? It's not leather, I suppose. Or is it leather?
It is, I think.
I don't know. Either way, it's not going to be very comfortable in hot weather, that's for sure. Right, so I can see B already, which is another tree that we get out here. So that big tree, two of them in a row over there. My World, Your Music, you say B for bees. That would be a good one. And we had a hive at one point. I don't know if it's still there. Maybe we should go and have a look. I almost actually killed Seb with it the one day, because Seb is not... He's very allergic to bees and can't really cope with them. And I was about to off-road through this tree, and he luckily pointed as we were about to hit it, and it would have caused a massive disaster. Now that tree there is our bee, because that is a balanites, which is the scientific name for a torchwood. So we'll use that for B, is balanites. They've just finished fruiting. Remember we had a lot of elephants around when the balanites were fruiting. They have this fruit that for us as people, I must be honest, think it tastes horrific. It smells as well. It's got a pungent smell, and it actually reminds me a bit of an earwax kind of smell. It's a funny smell on it. I don't like it at all. But the animals seem to absolutely love them, particularly the elephants. They shove them in by the trunk loads, and so it is really a good tree for animals and wildlife. When they're fruiting, you find a lot of them eat it. And the torchwood name comes from the fact that it was used basically as a torch. So they would use branches from it, and then that seed, if you actually break down the seed and you press it, you'll get an oil from it. That oil actually burns for a very long period. So once they would then wrap it around onto a tree, and then they would burn it, and you would get this torch that would burn. So it was a very, very good tree to have around. So there's B. Right, any ideas for C? Izzy, you say our balanites look so different here than they do in the Mara. Izzy, would love to actually see some of the balanites. I'm sure Steph and Jamie and Brent and James and Scott and Taylor have all shown balanites. I must be honest, I haven't seen any from them recently, but it would be interesting. I wonder why it is the case. Maybe something to do with soil type or substrate, or I don't know, water availability. But ours tend to be very, very straight, and then with this gnarled bark, and then they kind of spread out towards the top. They're actually one of my favorite trees out here. I think they're very pretty trees. They always look beautiful. They're not ideal for driving around and for having a game drive and to try and drive over, because they do puncture tires very easily. But they are beautiful trees, and particularly in the summer months when they've got these green leaves on them and they sort of sprawl out, and they generally are a lot taller than a lot of the other trees in this particular section, and it makes it a lot easier, well, a nice tree to see. I don't know, I just like them. They stand out quite a bit, so one of my more favorite trees. So I also decided while we're playing the alphabet game, and so we can get some more ideas for C, I'm going to start on the western side of Juma and slowly work my way towards the east by going north-south. Now, Paula, you say an idea for C is a cameraman, and I think it was John, you said an idea for C was a chameleon, both of which are going to be equally impossible to get on camera because, well, the only cameraman that's here at Juma is sitting behind the camera, and he told me today that he's shy of the camera. But actually, we do need to go to Treehouse Dam and see do a time lapse, so we will get him on camera just now. And there you can see a bounding springbok. Springbok. Sorry, I don't know what's going on, Sam. I don't know why I thought of springbok at all. Steenbok. It's the heat, exactly. I'll just say that my brain is being cooked. But it is a bounding steenbok that was jumping away from me. And you can see how well they camouflage once they lie down. But nice to see. Lots of them in this area. I'm sure that's why Shadow spends a lot of time this side of the world, is because there is a lot of steenbok and duiker that roam around in this grassy area, and this is going to be, I think, one of my favorite sections in summer. I remember doing a bushwalk here in late summer, and the insect life that was in this grassy section was amazing. There was spiders, there was assassin bugs, there was caterpillars, there was all kinds of stuff. And I think once we get to summer, now that there's a road and it's also been cleared a little bit, they got rid of a lot of the black monkey orange and they cleaned it out a little bit, and I think once we get to that, or to summer, it's now going to be a absolutely beautiful place to walk. And I think we're going to get lots of ellies here, and of course, well, Shadow and her cub have spent a lot of time, so it's going to be a great place to walk. We were going to be walking tomorrow morning, but if there's no internet connection in the Mara, which is possible, then it's going to be a little tough to do 3 hours of walking by ourselves, because we have to think of poor Seb's bicep. He doesn't have biceps like Byron, unfortunately, and so, you know, holding the camera for 3 hours non-stop is not the easiest feat to do. So we'll just monitor it, but if Mara is with us, then I think we will walk tomorrow. I'm quite keen to actually be on foot and to see what's happening and to check around the ongoings and see if anything has started to come alive. The last time I did a walk wasn't too much in the way of insect life or anything like that, and no flowers yet, but it is starting. We can see a lot of the trees are starting to bud a little bit, and so a walk might be a good idea. Chameleons, though, getting back to C. No, sit, because you are my C. No, it's flown away. There was a canary there, but it's now flown away, so we're going to have to try and find another C. But let's check. No. So chameleons are going to be tough. We're going to have to wait until nighttime, and also not too many of them around just yet. They're waiting, I think, for more of the vegetation to grow and a little bit more rain to fall, but we'll try and look for them. And there was a suggestion of crocodile and civet. Both of those. Crocodile should be quite easy. Andy, you said civet. So civet would be nocturnal, which would be a bit of a problem because we're trying to win our game as much as possible. So we need to get hold of C's quite early on. Now, what are you on top of the tree? Now, that's completely backlit, so difficult to see. So it looks like a sabota lark that is sitting there. You can see the big prominent white eye stripe, and heavy bill and beak, and there are a few Sabota larks around, so that's not any help for our sea, but still nice to see. I know Byron had a couple of them in his bird challenge that he did, and they're drifting around. You'll often find them in small groups. Just to your right, there's one there. There we go. So you'll find that they have a heavy white eye stripe and then quite a thick set beak. So there we go, and you can see the little bush willow pods on the back, russet bush willow pods. We could use russet bush willow as well, because we use red bush willow for A. Russet bush willow, the family name is Combretum, so we can use that for our C, so that we can keep going and then get on to D. So there we go, that's our Combretum for C. Onward. What are we going to do for D, Seb? What do you want for D? Seb? Well, we could have used these. Juma. No, remember we said we're not going to use dams and things. We have to show animals and things like that. Diker would be a good one. We should find one of those. That's a nice one to use, actually. I like that because it's an animal, and we haven't seen any animals yet this afternoon. It's surprising because generally this particular... Oh, we've seen a springbok / steenbok. The steenbok that is graduated to become a springbok, apparently, according to my brain. No, of course it is a steenbok. Dwarf mongoose, Robin, that's a good one as well. I didn't think of that, and we had a dwarf mongoose earlier, and there are some that hang around in this particular section. I've seen them quite often running around here, but it might be a little hot to see them now. But let's go slowly. Wild dog, dove. I suppose wild dog would be more for W, though. I think I would use that for W. A dove would be also an easy one. There's another little steenbok. Let's have a look at this steenbok because it is sitting beautifully out in the open. Sylvia, you're wondering if there's any dogwood trees in the Kruger. Sylvia, I have never heard of a dogwood in the Kruger National Park system, so I don't think there is. Well, I'll ask around and just check, but it might be, if they're anywhere, it would be in the northern reaches of the park. I don't know the tree ecosystem in the north very well. They have a lot of very specific trees along the Levuvu and the Lumbombo and Limpopo rivers, but no, there's not really any down this side of the world. So even if we were looking for a dogwood and it did occur in the Kruger, it's definitely not down this part of the world, and so we would not be able to find it. But there goes our steenbok. It lost its nerve, little female. They are very beautiful antelope. I really love steenbok. They have this beautiful red coat with this little white tummy, and the most interesting thing is between their back legs is jet black. So a lot of people don't know that, but just between their back legs they have this like black section of fur. It's really quite pretty, actually. Not that you ever see a steenbok upside down, other than when unfortunately it has expired due to some sort of predator. You know what, before we head off down this way, I actually want to go and just quickly check up on our vulture nest, because we have a vulture nest here on Philemon's cut line and I haven't been to it for quite some time, so I want to see how big the chick is. Oh, I've got a D all around us actually, but let's use that pile over there, Seb. So D is for dung this afternoon. So there is our dung pile. You can see a massive midden for impalas. So that's a male impala that's defecated there. That's all his pellets, and lots of males probably that have been territorially dominant over this section when it was the mating season. They would have all defecated there and urinated there, and that's the males. And then if you zoom out a little bit, Seb, you'll see that there's a big clump and then small little clumps around it. Now the little clumps around it generally are the females and younger males that will be defecating in close proximity to where the male does. So there's those little round balls of processed grass and leaves. There we go, D. Right, E. Elephant. Let's try find an elephant. That's what I want to do. Or we can do... I can do E right now as well, because we can show guaris, because that's Euclea divinorum. Maybe let's use E for something else. If I get stuck, I can always go to the guaris, because there's lots of them around. But it would be nice to have elephants for E. Our vultures are on the nest. Now, I can't see the little one yet. Let's try go around though. I remember the alphabet game was super easy from like A to R, S, T, around that area. Then it became super tough. The last few letters of the alphabet are not easy out here at all, but we will, I'm sure, be okay and find what we need. Egyptian goose, Norena, that's a good one for E as well. I like that. And we are heading towards Treehouse Dam, so if there's no elephant at Treehouse Dam, we will get an Egyptian goose for sure. But I just want to have a little quick check on our vulture. You can see there's the adult white-backed vulture that's sitting on the nest. Well, it looks like the adult. You can see a couple of the white feathers. Actually, bless you, Seb.
Thank you.
You all right?
Yep.
Bit dusty out here, isn't it? Now you can see a few white feathers. Those are the down feathers from the chick, which is over there. There's the little chick's poking its head up. So it must be molting some of its down feathers and starting to get its adult plumage. Well, not adult plumage, but its immature plumage. So it's proper feathers and proper wings, and a few of the little soft down feathers when it was born as a chick are starting to come out and being trapped in the branches around that area. Now, white-backed vultures are an interesting one because they're a bird that I really love to watch at nesting season. They tend to start getting into nests quite early in the year, so June, July is when they are prepping nests. They then lay their egg and they'll incubate that egg for about 44 to 45 days. The egg then hatches, and then after that, that chick is nest bound for quite some time. It will be at the nest for about 150 days. It's a very long period. So that adult has really got to have its wits about it, or the pair that is here, and they've got to provide food for this chick for that amount of time. It really is a huge commitment, and then they do it all again the very next year. They don't take a break. So sometimes when you have long nesting birds, they'll then sometimes miss a season, but these guys don't. They will breed every season, and so the process will start again in June, July, just after this one has fledged and moved off, which is quite amazing. And when we see things like this, it is super encouraging, because unfortunately vulture numbers have declined massively across the world. Not only here in South Africa, but every part of the world has unfortunately lost a huge percentage of their vulture numbers through various things. Here in South Africa, we have a lot of problems with livestock being poisoned, so carcasses that have been taken by jackals, caracals, leopard. Farmers often poison that carcass to try to get rid of that predator, and the result is that the vultures come and eat off it, and they then poison and die. And the other big problem, and probably the biggest percentage of birds that die, is through strikes into electric lines, so power lines, telephone cables. These birds fly into them, particularly in the low light hours, so early morning, late afternoon, and they get hit by those electrical cables, and they then succumb to that. So that's caused a lot of problem. And then obviously habitat loss has also been a massive problem too. So these animals in cities and towns and areas where people have started to inhabit, big trees like this get cut down, and there's really no place for the vultures to nest. What is also quite cool with vultures is you can often, even if the vultures weren't there, you can kind of work out who's nesting or whose nest it is just from where the nest is positioned in the tree. White-backed vultures generally will like a nest like this, where it's in one of these more open, sparse trees. So this is a marula that doesn't have leaves because we're now in the winter months, and it's fairly on the edge of the tree, so it's easy to get in and out of it. It's not too bad. If you look at something like a hooded vulture, their nest site will be in a completely different place. So their nest site will be normally along a watery area. They like to nest in scotias and jackalberries, and the reason why is they like a very shaded, very hidden nest. So they don't like to be out in the open, and their nest tends to be deep into the tree, so they're often right in the middle of the tree. And then your leopard-faced and white-headeds tend to be right on the crown of trees, so they tend to be right on the top of a tree where you can see it quite clearly. And then your Cape vulture, which is another vulture species we get here, they tend to be cliff nesters, so they like to find mountainous areas where they can nest on cliffs, and that's where you find them. So quite cool that you can identify just from the nest roughly which species it is. Of course there's always anomalies to these things, but that is pretty much it. Paula, in terms of eggs and how many they lay a year, they will lay 2 eggs in a year. So remember, they lay an egg the 2 eggs now in this sort of July period, and what will generally happen is either the 1 egg doesn't hatch, or if both chicks hatch out of it, you'll find a situation where the old or the stronger chick, so it might be the slightly older one, it might be the one that just physically is a bit stronger, it's able to get to the food from the parents first in the first few days, or it hatched first. That will then generally kill the other one, and siblicide is hugely common in vultures, and very, 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 very seldom, in fact 99.9% of the time, it will only be 1 chick that will survive. So that's why we see the 1 there. There might have been 2, but it's generally only the 1 that will be raised to adulthood. If she lost both of them, there is a chance that they will breed again, and she might lay again, but obviously it's difficult for them because their incubation period and their period of looking after the chick is so long that then impacts on their chance to breed in the next season. So it's difficult. It depends on how long until if that chick survives. Now this chick is going to do a lot to stay alive, and that's why you'll find that 1 adult generally stays here, because of the nest position and how open it is, and how there is a lot of predators that will see this. So you'll find things like leopard. I've seen leopards going into vultures' nests and killing the chicks, as well as varying other raptors. You'll find owls, so things like the giant or Verreaux's eagle owl. We know that it had a bird kill the other day at Twin Dams. We saw a Verreaux's eagle owl on a kill, so they'll go after this. Then you'll get civets, genets, snakes. There's a lot of different predators, but if the adults are there, they generally can cope with it. The only thing that would really kind of be able to do this easily would be a leopard, but it would be a leopard that would have to take a chance, because that branch is not very easy to get to, and that's why these whiteback vultures like to put them up in that area. It's also why the hooded vultures are doing so badly. It's because their nests tend to be a lot lower and in areas with dense predators. So Sinak, you're wondering how long it is until they learn how to fly. So there was a nest at Chitwa when I was working there, very close to the lodge, and it was great because I used to watch that vulture fly every day, and will learn to fly every day. They start flying already at about 120 days, 130 days. They're starting to fly. So they're starting to just take short little flights around their nest, and they fully fledged and fully able to fly already by the 150 days. Then they're out and they're flying around and doing their thing. So it's not a very long process. Once they've got the adult feathers and those big wings, it takes a few times of flapping and a bit of uncoordinated plunging to the sort of lower depths of the tree and onto the ground even sometimes, and then they get it right within a few days, and by the time they've sort of 30-40 days has passed since they've started flying, those muscles are strong and they're able to then start soaring and fly these incredible heights that vultures cover. So it really is an amazing thing when you see these guys going. But super happy to see that our chick is surviving. I think we're going to carry on and leave them to it. I've disturbed them enough this afternoon, and I believe Seb was telling me actually that there's another nest now that's close to Gowrie Dam, so we might have a little check on that later. If we're struggling for V, we'll come and try and find vulture, but we found lots of different little things for the lower end of the alphabet, so hopefully we'll find an E now and then we can move on. I've already thought for F we can maybe do firefinches. That would be quite nice. I haven't seen that many firefinches recently, although they are around. It's just difficult to get them on camera. A finfoot would be nice. Imagine if we had a finfoot. Of course, we won't see that here because finfoots are river birds, but that would have been cool. What else? Fork-tailed drongo. Seb, that should be an easy one. We should be able to find that fairly easily. What else is with an F? Chris Rogue, you suggest a frog. Well, Seb and I know exactly where to find a frog, although it's not a frog, is it? It is a toad. So we would not be able to use it because we have, at the moment, we have a eastern olive toad that is living in the swimming pool at Inga's that is pretty much driving Seb and I crazy because it starts at about 6:30, just in time for us to finish our drive, and then it starts with its bellowing call. Now, its bellowing call is a reminder about work, basically. It just says work, work, work. So I'll play it for you now. And it is a deep, very loud, very interesting call that is made, and I'll show you what actually an eastern olive toad looks like because they're actually quite pretty little things. And I'm super excited about this because even though he's keeping me awake at night and he's a little bit on the loud side, it's a good sign that we are going to start getting more frogs. And I always like frogs. I know Taylor's also a big frog fan, so I'm going to be happy about it. So let me turn off and I'll play you the call that we have to listen to every night. Now you would think that this frog would grow tired of that call, that monotonous work-like call all afternoon or evening, but no. It just goes from sunset to sunrise, no problem. It's perfectly happy, and it sits on the little cleaning. So we have this thing that we call a creepy crawly, which is basically it's a cleaner, self-cleaner of the pool, and it has a pipe, and it sits on the pipe, and that's where it kind of calls from. And then during the day it's very clever. It goes into the little weir basket, so it's perfectly hidden and nobody can get to it. That's why it's surviving. So a very clever frog, although I'm sure the chlorine is not very good for it at all, because chlorine can't do well for their skin. Prolonged periods of chlorine and acid should not really go down too well when it comes to a frog or a toad. But a frog would be nice. I was wondering where we'd find a frog. Yami, you say Franklin, that's also another easy one. There's lots of easy ones for F. Like I say, the beginning of the alphabet is good. So E, I've postponed E a little bit because I'm hoping that E will get elephants. But if we don't, at Treehouse Dam, I know either there's going to be an Egyptian goose or at least there's a guarri. And like I say, both of those are E's, so I can get that quite quickly. Now you might be thinking why a guarri is an E, but like I was saying earlier, its scientific name is euclea. So euclea starts with an E, and that can be our E for the day. Although that sounds pretty dodgy. You don't really want to be telling people I'm going to have my E for the day, because E is obviously a slang word for things that you shouldn't be doing in life. No tracks of any leopard around. So apparently there's some nyala on the dam camp, so that's our N for later. We've got lots of things lined up for the alphabet, so we're going to be okay, I think. I think we'll get through it. It'll be a good job if we do. We've just got to get to the areas that we need to for certain letters, and so while we're doing that, we're just kind of bumbling around and checking out what's going on. I'm also keeping an eye out for any tracks. Remember that yesterday I was tracking a female leopard towards this area, so I was just checking and making sure that maybe that little leopard didn't come this way. It looks like a young female, and the more I went and spoke to Herbie, and Herbie and I had a little look at those tracks, and he's convinced that they're Shongile's. So, and the pattern that she moved would be very much Shongile's track. What is that on the dam wall there? Something on the dam wall. Maybe it's just a dead branch, but it's kind of a rusty color. I think it is just a branch, but I thought for a second it was one of our leopards sitting on the dam wall, but it's not, unfortunately. Right, Treehouse Dam, what have you got for us? You've got an impala, which is for I, but we're not quite there yet. There's a blacksmith lapwing. Are there no Egyptian geese here? Are you kidding me? That's amazing. I would have thought we would have seen Egyptian geese for sure. There's our oxpeckers for O later in the day. Sorry, impalas. I just want to try get round and see if we can't find our Egyptian goose quickly. I'm sure there must be an Egyptian goose here somewhere. There's always Egyptian geese at Treehouse Dam. Of course, it's how it goes, is when you're looking for something and you get to an area like this and you kind of, oh, I'll find it, no problem. Then you look and there's nothing there, and it's a bit perplexing, actually. Sorry? Time lapse. Ah, yes, sorry, Seb. Your time lapse. I forgot about that. Well, Seb, you can put, when you do your time lapse, if you put it on one of those guarri trees, then I can do those for E, so we can start moving on in the alphabet while you do your time lapse. Seb is so diligent with his time lapse. He does it every afternoon without fail, which is fantastic. It's really going to be very nice. I hope it will be nice after all of this, otherwise you're going to be in trouble. I think some of the presenters, although it's just me really, so you're not going to be in trouble because I quite like the idea. So let me park here, and if you, like I say, can just show my guarri tree on the other side of the dam, then I'll chat about my guarri tree while you do your business. Be careful of Scuba Steve and his friend that was wandering around here. We don't want Seb to be eaten by a hippo, although there's no sign of a hippo that I can see anyway. Right, so that is our guarri bush that you can see on the other side. So that's E for us, Euclea divinorum. Now, divinorum comes about because this tree is used to divine water. Surprise, surprise. Now, there's a thing about that really is quite interesting, because you speak to some people and they are absolutely convinced that this tree does find water. So how they do it is they cut a Y-shaped branch. That Y-shaped branch, they then walk with it, and when the Y-shaped branch starts to point downwards, that is where there is water. Now, the reason why it works and why people do find water is because guarri trees always grow in and around water. So they grow along drainage lines, they grow along sort of riverine paths, around water courses like this, or dams that we see at Treehouse. And so that's why generally it works, is because there's water right there. I don't think the tree itself actually has a magnetic pull to water in any way, but if you try and argue that with some people, they will probably shoot you or kick you in the knees, at least, because they are very, very, very into that belief. What is really true with this plant is that you can use it for a multitude of different things. It's actually a very useful plant, particularly at this time of the year, because we are now in a situation where we're very hot and dry. Fires are going to be a big problem, and that tree is one of the best things you can do if you have a fire in this area. It works perfectly to beat a fire. So if you hit flames with it, and the tree itself, because of the leaves and the way it is, it basically suffocates the oxygen and the fire goes out. So it's a really handy one to have. It's also great for dust. If you've got dust around, you can then hit those leaves against whatever's dusty, and the dust tends to kind of come off. And so trackers love that tree. They often hit their cooler boxes and their hot boxes with it that sit on the back of the car and get dusty in this winter, so they'll use that for there. So there we go, that's our guarri bush. You can see the camera shook a little bit, which means that our friend Sebastian is safe and back on the vehicle. Aileen, you want to know how we spell guarri bush? So it's G-A-U-R-R-I, guarri. That's how you spell it. And that particular one there is a magic guarri. So the magic part is the same as the divinorum part. It becomes because this plant can divine water. So that's how that works. But there is another species of guarri that we get in this area called the natal guarri. Now, to tell the difference between the two of them is quite easy. The magic guarri has got a wavy leaf. So the leaf undulates, whereas the natal guarri has got a nice straight-edged leaf and is quite flat. So that's how you can tell the difference between the two. Now, Seb, you may need to just move your camera a little bit to the left, given that I'm going to turn left, so you can go to the left if you want, or you can do that Batelia eagle that's flying over there. So that's another one for E if we really wanted to. Eagle. There's a Batelia that's flying in the distance, slowly but surely away from us. Interesting though that Batelia actually took off from where we are now, so I wonder if it didn't come for a drink potentially here at Treehouse Dam and just decided to have a bit of water. It's disappearing behind the tree there. There it goes. Not easy when it's flying away from you and low to the ground. And that particular individual is a young Batelia, and the reason why I know that is because it's still brown in coloration. When they get older, they will change. They will start to get white and black and a brown saddle on their back, but this particular bird is still very much brown coloration, and the tail is still quite long on this Batelia. As they get older, that tail will shorten a little bit. Well done, Sebastian. That was not easy. That bird was flying at speed and away from us, so well done. Very good. Now, James, you're asking, I wonder if any of the Wahlberg's eagles have been seen, and hopefully the dark morph or pale morph pair has arrived. James, we saw one yesterday morning, so the dark morph of that pair that is around Twin Dams, we saw it yesterday perched close to Twin Dams, and it was causing a bit of a heart attack to all the grey go-away birds in the area. They were not very impressed by this Wahlbergs arriving back, but exciting, isn't it, that they are back. I really want the pale forms to arrive, and we know the pale form is one of them that nests at Twin Dams, so maybe the partner is just slightly waylaid and will start coming into this area soon. Right, where are we on the alphabet now? F. Are we on F? Yes, we're on F. Okay, so F we've got covered. We've got quite a few options for F already, as discussed. What's after F? Let's see here, G. Okay, I'll think about that. Aaron, you're wondering about a bird that I really love seeing, particularly because they're just so incredible to watch when we have these termite hatches, and those are the Ama falcons, and you're wondering when we're going to see them. They tend to arrive a little bit later, and so we tend to find they arrive normally late November, early December, so still a little bit of time before they get here. They're not one of the first migratory birds to arrive, but they really are a bird that's, in my mind, is just, it's such a tragedy what's happening to them. Their numbers are declining at a rate of knots, so every year less and less and less of these beautiful birds are arriving back here in South Africa, because they are netted by the hundreds when they congregate to leave on their migratory route, and it's really sad to see those kind of things happening. So unfortunately there is a lot of that's going on, and hopefully it will all disappear and stop, and we'll be able to see them bouncing back, because it is an amazing bird to watch flying around. And like I say, when they hunt those winged owlets from the termites that hatch after the rains, it is the most amazing things to see. I remember last year, it was late January, no, well, it couldn't have been late January, early January, when I left Simbambili just before I started at Safari Live, and we were at Simbambili, and there's a big open area there and close to a dam, and all these winged owlets were in the air, and these Ama falcons, there must have been, I would say, probably about 20 to 30 of them, and Ali was with me actually, so she'll remember this, and they were just dive bombing in and grabbing these little owlets on the wing and with their beaks or with their feet, and then putting them in. It was amazing to watch. It really was a very special display of agility, because those owlets, while they're not the fastest flying, they're pretty nimble in the way that they're able to kind of bank and turn quite quickly. But that falcon was able to do that just as fast and find exactly what it needs. So really quite impressive. F. Drongo, where are you, drongos? Normally everywhere. Now I can't find one of you. I need to find an animal for drongos, because generally the drongos are around. Animals? Starling? No, you're a little bit later in the day. We will get to you when we need S, because we've already passed B, so we can't use it for B. A fly for F. Well, there's no shortage of them this afternoon. They've been bugging us constantly, but getting them on camera is a whole different story. But I will try. Let's see if we can test Sebastian's skills. Seb, are you up for a challenge?
Yeah,
always. Okay. Always. Well, then we shall try challenge you. Let's try find a fly. I might just skip F for 2 seconds, because we are going towards Janet Jackson's home, so maybe we get G for Janet Jackson. So let's just quickly check here, and then we'll get back to F. And because, oh, look at that. Now I know it's not a F or a G, but look at how beautiful that tail is in that afternoon light. That's the lilac-breasted roller, and it's got its tail spread. I wonder if it's not going to nest here. It would be a very bad place to nest, lilac-breasted roller. Do not nest there, because that hole there is going to have a genet lurking as a neighbor, and genets love nothing more than little eggs and chicks, so don't nest in that area. It's not going to be a good place for you. But look at those colors. Is that not just... I know we see them often, and they are a common bird, but they are just so exquisite. They've got these beautiful colors all over them, and really, when the sun is in this late afternoon or early morning stage, and these guys, especially have their wings spread like that, or their tail spread, should I say, they really show off that electric blue that they've got. And I love the streamers, so the little tail streamers that come off the bottom are quite amazing as well. So very pretty, but not a place you want to spend time as a roller in terms of a nesting area. And they love this kind of stuff. They like to nest in holes in trees like this. So maybe it nested there last year and wants to nest again, but Janet as a neighbor is not an ideal individual. Although that nest is quite small, I don't think our Janet would be able to fit in there. You never know though. They are quite resourceful little animals. But let's check quickly if Janet is home. I wonder if... I was hoping my roller would stay there, but it's flown away. It would have been nice if it did, because we would have been able to get some beautiful close-ups. Right, Seb, we might have to be quick with this. As we know, our Janet is quite a fast one. No, not home today. Janet Jackson really does live the lifestyle of the rich and famous. Tends to never be at home. It always seems to be on holiday and moving around, and very shy when it comes to the paparazzi, so it does a good job at hiding away from us. I have seen it here recently, just a flash of spots. So Roshni, you reckon she's gone to the spa? Well, it's hot today, Roshni, so maybe she's at the pool sipping cocktails with her friends. That's what I think she's doing. Tuesday afternoon, pool time, cocktails, happy. If it's a girl. If it's a guy, well, I don't see why things would change either. Either way, he's probably having a spa and pool day with a cocktail and taking it easy. Hopefully it's not at the beach, because then it will be very, very lost. Janet is then headed completely in the wrong direction and very far east into Mozambique, and probably won't make it back this side of the world anytime soon. Okay, so we still need F, still need G, because that we can't tick off. There goes a bounding squirrel, which would be nice for S later, but it's not one we can use. Are you going to sit still, squirrel? No. Roshni, you also say flower. What's flowering at the moment? The wild pears should be flowering, the dombayas, but I haven't seen any yet on Juma. Sausage trees, well, when we go to Chitwa, we'll be able to get sausage tree flowering on the deck there. The quarry is actually flowering. I can use a quarry, I suppose, for F as well. But that's a good idea, Roshni. That's an easy one. Although you'll think that all of these things are easy. Drongos and flowers, and yet here we are driving without it. I'm sure we will find one fairly shortly. I actually think maybe while I'm thinking about F and slowly on my way to Twin Dams, it might be a good idea to actually get an update as to what's going on, because I haven't been listening to my radio at all. There might be a sighting running and I just haven't heard, and I don't want to bump anybody's sighting if they've got 3 vehicles. Afternoon Stations Mobile, any updates? So we just chat to the guides quickly and just get a quick update as to what's happening. If they want to talk to me, of course, because it seems like no one wants to say hello. No, there we go. Aubrey's going to save us. Sounds like it's very quiet, apparently, according to Aubrey. Okay, copy that. Thanks. There'll be no updates on the Nkuma Pride. So it sounds like a Birmingham in Torchwood, but other than that, nothing else. Hello, little impalas. How are you all doing? Yes, don't look at me as though I'm mad for saying hello. Listen to all their feet as they walk through the grass. It's quite cool. I can't imagine the noise that those herds must make, especially with these sensitive mics that we have on the cameras. I would love to hear those wildebeest herds if we just sat in silence and just heard them walking through the grass. Imagine there would be quite a lot of noise, because when you get big buff herds, you hear the noise, and even these impalas, like I say, when they were scattering from us just now, lots of rustling of the grass. They again are one of the most beautiful animals we have out here. Really enjoy spending time watching impalas. I know they are common and a lot of people don't really like to spend too long with them, but I can tell you there's been countless times where I've sat and we've been chatting about impalas and just watching them with guests, particularly guests that are on their first safari and it's their first afternoon, and inevitably, generally, impalas are one of the first animals you come across, and I always like to spend a lot of time with them, and I can't tell you how many times I've had crazy sightings from just sitting watching impalas. All of a sudden a leopard bounds out of the bush, or wild dogs come running across, or some sort of animal arrives. It goes to show that even looking at the smaller stuff sometimes is a very good win, and you can lead you to luck in other departments. So always like seeing them. And look how big they've gotten. You think that that was a tiny little baby 9 months ago. My World, Your Music, you say you agree impalas are great animals. Well, they are. Imagine if they were rare. People would love to see this antelope, because they do have striking markings. They've got these beautiful black stripes on the rump. They've got those 3 different colors, so that darker red, and then that tan and white on the chest, and then bits of black on the face. And then they've even got those little black metatarsal glands that look like ballerina socks on the back foot. and it really is an exquisite looking animal. So it's just because they're so common, people overlook them. But I find actually, and in terms of even photographically, they're one of the most beautiful animals, particularly in late afternoon or early morning light, because that coat color just gets so rich with the orange tone of the light that we get here. It really is very pretty. Now, Paula, you want to know at what age an impala is considered fully grown? Well, at about... Well, it's difficult because with the females, they're sexually mature and they're mating. Whether they're fully grown or not is another discussion, but they already are mating within their sort of second year. So they're born in November, December. They then, for the first year, don't mate, and then they will mate the following April. So they're already mating at that time. They might not be fully grown, but they are already sexually mature. The males, however, they only reach, in terms of their horn size and adult size, that they can compete for mating at 3.5 years. So for them, they might body-wise have reached fully grown at 2, but their horns haven't quite gotten that big yet, and therefore they can't challenge. So 3.5 for the males is really the earliest that they'll start mating. Most of the successful males are around 4.5, 5.5 in their mating seasons, and then obviously you get the older ones that go from there. But fully grown, probably around 2 years is what I would imagine for the skeletal structure to stop growing. It would be an interesting thing to know. Maybe if some of you do know, #Safari Live or YouTube chat, if you know exactly how long it takes for the impala's skeletal structure to stop growing. No one likes me. As we're talking about ages of them growing, you're wondering what the lifespan is of an impala. Well, it depends. Here in the Sabi Sands, a lot of them is not very long, is the answer to that. No, I'm just kidding. Most of them will live to, in this area, generally about 7 to 9 years old. Very seldom go past that. As they get a little bit older, they get a bit slower, and because of the density of predators here, lion, leopard, wild dog, hyena, cheetah, absolutely hammer them. So here, only 7 to 9, but in captivity they can go as much as 12, 13. So they're not very long-lived animals, but they do reproduce quickly. And I mean, if they're already mating at 1.5 years old, I suppose they can produce quite a number of little ones before they expire of old age. And there's a beautiful ram that you've got there. So he's going to be in line to mate next year. He's definitely a more mature individual. Laurie, you're wondering if they shed their hair in the winter. No, in winter their hair gets slightly thicker and longer, because remember, our winter, it's drier and colder here. In summer it becomes too hot. When there's temperatures of 100 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, these antelope can't have thick coats in the summer, so they'll actually shed a little bit, and the fur gets less dense during the summer months. There we go. Beautiful herd. No drongo though. I'm surprised, because drongos generally are with impala herds. They're normally flocking around, picking off insects and grabbing little things as they go. So I'm surprised that we don't have any drongos with them. Interesting. Wonder if they would get any little fire finches here. This is a good place for fire finches as well. What are these tracks here? No, no good. Frank, you want to know if I've ever eaten impala meat? I have, Frank, a few times actually. It is a very, very, very lean, very tasty meat actually. It doesn't have too much of a gamey taste. It's not as gamey as the northern hemisphere venison. So it is actually quite tasty, and in South Africa there's a lot of places where they actually will farm venison quite extensively, so that they can, people will either hunt them or they will produce them for venison trade. So they're not taken out of these natural systems like the Sabi Sands. They are sort of gotten by people that actually have farmed them, and you just go and buy it from the shops itself. So it is fairly tasty. I can see why lions and leopards and everything under the sun likes a bit of impala. They're not the worst tasting animals. F. What are we going to use for F? There's not much here at Twin Dams either. I wonder where all our leopards are at the moment, because the guys say to me they haven't seen a leopard for 2 days now, not even tracks, which is surprising. And I'm sure there must be one of our spotty friends around. It's just a matter of finding said individual. I'm going to check up towards Chelapan and then down the Mulawati. Ah, there's F right there next to us. Don't run away. There, that side. Or that side, whichever side you want. There we go. There's a francolin that is moving through the bush, a crested francolin that is just bobbing its neck off as they do. They always walk with as though they've got lots of attitude and little neck bobs, and they are beautiful. I really like crested francolins. Look at those markings on their wings. Everyone often overlooks them because from far they tend to blend in and they look quite drab and it's browns and horrible colors, but they've actually got this kind of chestnut color with these little white flecks, that white eye stripe. So I actually quite like them. I think they're quite pretty birds. Obviously they also cause heart attacks regularly for trackers because they all explode out of a thicket as you come around a corner tracking a lion or a leopard, and you think the tracks are fresh, and next thing there's a squawking francolin flying at you. It's enough to give you a heart attack. So I'm surprised more francolins are not blown away by a rifle by novice guides, because they really do give you a fright from time to time. Right, G, Sebastian. What are we going to do for G? That is a good one. Ali, my Ali, suggests a golden-breasted bunting. Now, there were some golden-breasted buntings earlier that I saw. What are all of these guys that we've got here? There's lots of different things. I think these might be southern grey-headed sparrows, though, which is not going to help me much. And there was H, which I wanted to really use because H is going to be a bit of a tougher one, and it was here. But I can't see it anymore. Do you see where that hoopoe flew to? There was a hoopoe here, an African hoopoe. I suppose hornbill I could use as well by H. Golden-breasted buntings. I've seen hundreds of them, but now none when you need them. There goes a hornbill. So there's H. I suppose we've skipped G, but it's alright. We'll get back to G just now. We'll take H while we can. It's fine, we'll get him later. Don't worry, there definitely will be a hornbill somewhere along the line. Golden-breasted bunting, where have you gone? There were hundreds of you earlier. Bless you, Seb. Noah, you say giraffe. That would be a nice one too, and a fairly easy one to spot, you would think. So maybe we'll get lucky with a giraffe somewhere around here. They do like this area. Often see giraffe around Twin Dams. They like to kind of hang around along these sections, so maybe I'll get lucky. I actually haven't. There's tracks for a giraffe right now, so there we go. I don't know if they're fresh tracks, but there is tracks of a giraffe heading north up the road. Can we use giraffe tracks? I don't know. Can we, Seb? There we go. On our right hand side here is the giraffe tracks. So coming up the road. Megs, what do you think? Megs, you're the referee. You need to tell us. Giraffe track, yes or no? No. I'm guessing. But there's a giraffe track going up. That's a big bull giraffe that seems to have walked here today sometimes because it's on top of all the vehicle tracks. So I'd imagine that giraffe is somewhere close. So Megs has said no to my giraffe track, so I will have to find a giraffe itself. Tough crowd today. Thought you would give me some slack, Megs. I'm all on my own out here. No, it's fine. Got to stern but fair. Stern but fair is okay. Razor, you say go away bird. I was just thinking the exact same thing as well as about a go away bird, and you would think you would find one of those fairly easily too, but it seems that go away bird is also not present at the moment. They're always around this section too. You see them a lot at Twin Dams. But today, when you need a go-away bird, there's no go-away bird. We're falling behind a bit here, Seb. We're going to have to get our game up because time is ticking and we're still only on G. Hello, impalas. Oh, sorry girls. Mia, you say GNU. Again, another one that's a really good suggestion. I think between all of your suggestions, we'll eventually get this right. Grey-headed bush shrike would be another one in this area that we could use. I saw one earlier just scooting across the road and we didn't actually get it. Just checking all the tops of the trees for the go-away birds because they like to sit in this area, and at the moment there is fruiting jackalberries along this section. What were you guys here? No, they all flew away. Sorry Seb, don't worry. What have you got, Seb?
Both passing there, but they flew away as well.
They flew away. David, giant eagle owl, good call as well. We're in a great place for giant eagle owls. When I drop into the Mulawati, it'll be better for them, but I will look for them too. That's not a bad bird as well to go for. Of course, all I'm doing is trying to delay the inevitable to get to L and then have a leopard. That's all I want, really. After that, the alphabet game will just fall away completely, but one can live in hope that that will happen, although I think I'm wishful thinking at this stage, because everybody would be super happy with a leopard. It sounds as though the guys are really struggling to find them. Kathy, Gymnagene, or a giraffe. How about that? See, Megan, I tracked the giraffe and now look, it's led us to the real letter. So there's our giraffe right there. So there's G off the list. Hello, giraffe. It's a beautiful big male. It's our male that we saw yesterday morning. Was it yesterday morning?
Yeah.
I can't even remember now. But it is the male we saw yesterday morning. I think the dark male that's walking a little gingerly. Seems to be on a go slow. Even yesterday he was walking quite slowly. But he is absolutely beautiful. He's dark in color. And I always love these kind of almost black giraffe. They're very pretty. You can see he's having a bit of a hard time with the oxpeckers that are busy feeding off him. And also lots of biting flies. Let's just try see if we can go forward. I know that the sun is not great for you, Seb, but it's just through this tree is not so nice either. Because this should be a lot better from here. There we go. There's our beautiful giraffe. That is as beautiful as it can get, with a bit of cloud above it and a few trees. And you can just see how they dwarf these trees. If I had to stand there, that giraffe leg would be about the height of me. So it really is a beautiful big individual. I love these big male giraffe. And he's not old. First time I saw him, I thought he would be old just given his coloration, but he's actually not that old. If you look at his head, while he does have a few ossicones that have developed, thick ossicones that have developed, and a few sort of knobbled bumps on his forehead, they're not massive yet, so he's not an old individual.
Monkey's alarm calling.
Yes. Monkey's alarm calling. Laurie, you wondering why he's drooling? So sorry, Laurie, I was just give me 2 seconds before I answer that. I was just listening because there was a monkey that alarm called once, and earlier I thought I heard an impala alarm call too. So I'm just listening out carefully, but we'll get into your question. You're wondering why he's drooling. It could be a number of things. He could be salivating due to it being quite hot and he's kind of been mouth open. Also could have been chewing on some sort of a food item. Sometimes they'll chew on bones or monkey oranges or wild calabashes, and they then sometimes secrete an extra amount of saliva out of that. Those are what I would think is probable. I don't think it's any sort of sign of him being unhealthy. He is a little bit on the skinny side, but that's to be expected at this time of the year, where in the winter months and the browsing animals don't do that well in the winter. You can see he's also got a lot of oxpeckers on him, which is great news for him, because that means he's going to be kept nice and clean and his parasite load will be less. You can see he's a little on the thin side, and there's all those parasites I was talking about. Look at all the ticks underneath the tail there. Those black dots that you're seeing are all ticks. And so the oxpeckers are vitally important. He's actually not too bad on the inside of his legs. That's generally where you see a lot of them. But he's actually not too bad there, down the legs. Few on the front legs. You can see those black sort of markings on the front legs. And actually you can see why he's walking gingerly. You look on the bottom left of that leg, and you can see there is a wound there. Now I'm not sure what's caused that wound, but it's healing up and he'll be okay. But that's maybe why he's just a little ginger at the moment when walking. It's interesting, these monkeys are not alarm calling heavily. Christy, you're wondering if a giraffe fights and falls down, can they experience permanent damage? Christy, I've never seen it myself. I suppose it is possible. I suppose they could hit each other at an awkward angle and cause some sort of brain damage, or potentially break a neck, or do something like that, or break a leg maybe. So that could be a situation that would happen. But of all the fights I've seen, even if they've knocked each other out, they get back up again. So it's very seldom that they're going to do permanent damage to each other. I suppose if they do hit themselves hard enough, there could be some damage done. Particularly the ribs and things like that. They might crack the ribs, but they still manage to get up and move. Animals are very, very, very hardy. They're much hardier than us as people. They are able to survive in sometimes the most harsh conditions, and even with really bad injuries. And I believe this Nkahuma female lioness has got a horrific injury on her hip. It looks as though she's had a really nasty fight with somebody in the Kruger National Park, because remember, they went in there and then they were seen the next day coming out of the Kruger Park with a nasty gash. So it does happen, and they will sometimes survive from that. I remember seeing a cheetah in this area that was attacked by lions, and she was cut from her front legs to her back legs across her abdomen, and that abdomen actually looked as though you could actually see her ribs and the tendons and ligaments around the ribs, and she survived. So, you know, even if there's a bit of a broken rib or a broken leg or something like that, sometimes if they can just stay away from other predators, they generally can be okay. Now there is another car coming behind me. I just want to put, there's in cow coloring here, but it's not lots. But maybe just check the Mulawati. Alright, cool. Cheers, guys. So I was just telling Tax that there are monkeys alarm calling generally in this area, for him to have a little look quickly and to maybe see if he can find what's causing those monkeys to be a little bit on the upset side. Maybe it's a bird of prey. Sometimes you will find monkeys alarm calling for things like crowned eagles, which would be a really amazing thing to see here. I didn't do it. The ticks most certainly can make the giraffe sick. If there's too many ticks, the giraffe definitely can get very sick from that. So they have to be a bit careful. They have to watch what's going on. They have to make sure that they are constantly trying to walk over bushes, scraping ticks off, allow those oxpeckers to feed off the parasites and keep them in good condition. You'll find a lot of the giraffe that have leg injuries tend to have a very high tick count. I remember there was a giraffe at Simambili that had a very bad front leg, and over time she just got overrun by ticks, and eventually she was found dead, and it was because of the ticks. They eventually basically poisoned her. Too much staphylococcus in their mouth parts that caused her to basically get an infection and die. So it really is not a pleasant thing to think about, but that is exactly what happened, unfortunately. But beautiful individual nonetheless, and you can see the flies and the oxpeckers are driving him crazy. I can tell you the flies are really bad today. They're far worse than I've seen them in a long time. There might also be a little wound somewhere there on the back that those oxpeckers are pecking at, because you can see they're all clustered together, and that's where he keeps moving his neck and trying to chase them. So there we go. There's tracks for a male leopard in the Mulawati that Taxon has picked up going southwards. So I think those are the same reason that these monkeys are alarm calling. Let's maybe just turn and go and check back towards Twin Dams. Maybe our leopard is on its way to Twin Dams and we find it. It would be fantastic if we did. Like I say, I'm playing the alphabet game in the hope that L rewards me with the leopard, even though I am enjoying the fact that we're looking at all different species and spectrums of life. H for Hosanna, fair enough, I think perfect. H for Hosanna, T for Tamba, and X for Shongile. That will be all three of them together lying on Twin Dam's wall. Thank you. We'll have that for later. That's perfect. We'll put that in the ordering and hope that that comes to fruition. I really want to see Shongile again. I know there's lots of you that are dying to see her, and I really can't give you an update on her. I've asked around. No one's seen her. No one knows where she is. So I'm hoping that she's somewhere in this area, and hopefully she will be seen. I'm just listening to text. Oh, there's Hornbill. Don't fly, don't fly. There we go. No. So yellow-billed Hornbill. There's H for us. Beautiful example of a Hornbill sitting nicely on top of an open branch. You don't often get them sitting so close, so really nice. And look at that yellow beak in that bright golden light. Isn't that beautiful? And those big eyes and big beaks that they use to be able to tussle with rather large prey items. You'll find hornbills, particularly the yellow-billed hornbill, will go after all kinds of different things. has flown away now. And I was saying they go after all kinds of things. Actually, you see them sometimes in the rest camps in Kruger where people will have barbecues and braais and food, and you see them actually going after whole pieces of steak, and so they are quite ferocious when they want to. There's our fork-tailed drongo. You see, they all come out now. Once you've got the letter, they all start coming out. What are we now on? We are on HI. Impalas. There must be impalas right here. And I've got J already as well, which is quite easy. Where's I? There was impalas right here 2 minutes ago. It's amazing though. Yeah, we've just driven this road and there was impalas on both sides of the road, right where I am now. Not one impala left here. So I don't know if they've gone down into the Mulawati or if they've shifted a little bit. Maybe they've come down to it. Oh, there they are. So there's our impalas for I in front of us. So we'll just quickly go forward. We obviously have spent a bit of time with impalas already this afternoon. There's our impala just walking past us, going down towards. So they're just slowly moving southwards towards the dam. But Taxon says to me the tracks for that leopard are coming this side, towards Twin Dams. So I wonder if it's not this individual. Maybe we get lucky. Maybe this leopard is still here. The monkeys weren't alarm calling heavily, so it's difficult. You know, when they see a leopard, they generally go crazy, but they weren't alarm calling too much. So I'm going to just see if maybe there's something popping out this side. No tracks that I can see this side. No. I wonder. Maybe, because Tax tells me he had tracks, like I say, coming straight towards where we are now. So it's difficult to know exactly where he's gone. There's nothing that's coming out that I can see anywhere here. There's hyena tracks going southwards, but no sign of a leopard. I just want to quickly chat to Tax and just see what he says. Those Ingwe Makonzo Madala. Those tracks, they're old.
I'm not quite too sure because it was on the sand there, on the corner they just come out.
Okay.
Side. And last night we just found him coming from this side.
Wasana? Tamba.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just when I got back there where we saw the track coming.
Alright, I'll do the fire break and go on Leadwood, check that side just in case.
Because last night he crossed that.
Okay.
To the east there.
Cool, I'll do Leadwood and then come back around on Mamba. Yeah. Alright. Cool. Okay, Tax. Cheers, guys. So I was just quickly chatting to Tax about it, and he says they had Tumba last night here at Twin Dams, and so these must be his tracks that they're talking about. But what Tax told me is that Tumba came from the east, crossed the drainage line to the, from the west, crossed the drainage line to the east, and these tracks are coming the opposite way. So maybe he's here somewhere, and I really hope so. I'm desperate to see our little Tumba. I haven't seen him, and as we all know, he's my favorite young leopard, so I'm really hoping we do. What letter are we on now? J. Here's J right here. We can use this for J. Jackalberry, and probably one of the best examples of a jackalberry in the whole of Juma. It is a beautiful big jackalberry, this particular individual. Chris Rogue, you said a jackal. Just trying to think where I'd find a jackal. Best place for a jackal would be Chitwa airstrip, although that jackal I think is a little bit on the mangy side from what I've heard. But we'll go and have a look. Maybe we get lucky with a jackal there. But I've got renewed energy and vigor now, because if little Tumba is here, I will be very happy if I can find him. But that's a beautiful example of a tree, isn't it? Imagine what that tree has seen, being here at Twin Dams all its life. The amount of lion and leopard and wild dogs and elephants and varying other species of animals that have crossed paths here, gone down to the water. It's an amazing thing to see. Very cool. I actually just want to quickly check somewhere, because I remember when we had Tumba at Twin Dams the one day, that we saw him go to a part of this area that's very difficult to negotiate. Remember when he went and... Seb, were you with me when he lay on this wall?
Yes, there.
Yes, let's go check there quickly. Maybe he's lying there because that's where his tracks go, and I remember he did once lie in this general vicinity. Because L is next letter, isn't it? K first, sorry. Maybe it's back to school for me. What do you think, Seb? Now, Megan, you said something, but I didn't quite hear it. Something about revolving leopards. I didn't exactly pick up what you said. Ah, there we go. So, Megs wants to give me a slight breather, so we're going to actually go to a little clip about leopards as I talk about L and I look for Tumba in this little section. So we'll see you in a little bit.
3 magnificent leopards call our piece of wilderness home: Kruger, Tingana, and Shadow. One of our favorite characters is Kruger. She is a 12-year-old leopardess who defines success as a mother and as a huntress. Kruger has raised 8 cubs to independence and, in February 2016, gave birth to another litter.
Guys, Kruger has brought her cubs to Juma. We've been tracking her. Look at the little guy. We just came around the corner. We're just going to keep very still. Isn't this amazing? Oh my goodness, isn't this exciting?
It has been a privilege and a joy to watch these 2 little cubs go from helpless furballs to perfect adolescent leopards. Their father, Tingana, is a 9-year-old male. This imposing prince of cats is the dominant male leopard of our area and the father of Kruger's new cubs. Shadow, at 9 years old, is Kruger's oldest daughter, and her story is far more tragedy than it is triumph. Unlike her mother, Shadow has yet to raise a cub to independence. There could be many reasons for this, ranging from hormonal imbalances to just plain bad luck. Her latest cub, a little female, was born in March 2016. We met this young leopard only twice before Shadow was seen mating again with Tingana. It is almost certain, therefore, that the new cub is dead.
Now, as much as those clips are a reminder of the incredible sightings that we had of both Shadow and that cub and Kruger and the 2 young royals, a little bit of sadness that kind of creeps in when you think of Kruger's name and you kind of remember these times that you had with her and how privileged we were to watch her and these little royal cubs grow up and become these these independent leopards that have done so well. It really is quite amazing. And then for Shadow to have lost that cub and now to have had another one and to be involved with that cub and to have done so well to get to the cub to where it is now, you know, that cub is approaching slowly but surely, getting to that magic kind of figure of a year-old when generally they do a lot better. So it's, you know, in a way those clips sometimes are a little bit sad, but it is also such a reminder of where Hosanna and Shongile and have come from and how well they've done to be where they are, and how there's a little bit of Kruger in all of them that has allowed them to be the survivors that they are. So it's a wonderful thing to see, and hopefully we can find any one of those leopards that were just shown now. I'd love to see Shongile, like I said, or Hosanna, Shadow, all of them. They're all firm favorites and animals that I love to spend time around. And we know that I'm a little bit crazy with leopards and love leopards as much as probably anybody else, so it'd be nice to catch up with any one of them. But lots of tracks for Tumba in this section, but they look like the ones from last night because a few vehicles have gone over them. So he must be here, and given that those monkeys made that little alarm call, maybe they just saw him lying down in a thicket somewhere, and that's why they gave a sort of 2 or 3 half-hearted alarm calls as they saw that he was resting. Although generally monkeys don't do that. Monkeys, when they see a leopard, go crazy and try and get that leopard away from them. Now, I'm also just checking very carefully on this side, on the southern side of Gowrie Main, because we know Tamba has spent a lot of time here in this particular section, so I'm sure he's around. We just need to find him. There's no tracks on Gowrie Main for him going over. They must still be around. So I'm going to keep with what I said to Tax, is that I'm going to go on Leadwood Road and try and check to see if there's nothing on Leadwood or Mamba, and then come back towards the Muluwati. Maybe by then we get lucky and he's come out towards Twin Dams for a drink. It is hot, it's dry, it's the perfect conditions for a leopard to go for a drink in this late afternoon golden light. So we're going to rely on that a little bit. What are we on now? K. Okay, K is quite easy. There's lots of those around that I can use. So there's knobthorn just on any side of the road, Seb. There's lots of those either side if you want to use them. Kudu would be another one that we could use, but there is a knobthorn, any of those big ones basically. So there's a knobthorn there. That one is no longer in flower. I think the one to the left there might be a better one for flowering. At least it's got a few flowers on it. So yeah, that one. So you can see a little bit of kind of a yellow tinge or mustardy color, and those are the last of the flowers for the knobthorns. They're one of the first plants to flower in the winter sort of season. In fact, I suppose you could call them a winter flowering plant. They're not really a summer flowering plant. They've all kind of finished flowering, and there's still a few of those creamy yellow colors, flowers should I say, that are left on the tree itself. And those are all ones that are just too tall for any of the animals to reach, because giraffe, elephants, any of the antelope species absolutely love those nectar-rich flowers, and those are just unfortunately way up high that they can't be reached. Beautiful tree though. L it is now, Siteb. Here we go. Spotted cats. We're going to find one now. I have a good feeling. I'm going to find a leopard somewhere. Of course, if we don't find a leopard, I am on Leadwood Road. Does that count, Megan? No. Is it only leopard? Is that the only L we can use today? No, because we said we won't use dams or roads. No, we said we won't use roads or dams or anything like that. So L's not what we can use. We're going to try and look for a leopard, but otherwise there's also lots of other L's. There's, you know, leadwood trees, there's leopard tortoise, there's what's that? Legavan, which is the Afrikaans name for a monitor lizard.